This is the Sony FX2, Sony's newest addition to their cinema line and possibly one of the most misunderstood cameras they have ever made. The FX2 shares the same sensor as the nearly 4-year-old Sony a7 IV, but it combines design elements from Sony's cinema line cameras that make it a completely different shooting experience. So in today's video, we're going to explore if the FX2 actually makes sense as a camera in today's market, and if you should consider picking one up for your work. This video is supported by lttstore.com, more on them a bit later. One quick thing before we get into this video, I recently looked at my analytics on this channel and 88% of you who regularly watch my videos aren't subscribed. So if you've ever received value from my videos, could you please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It will help me keep making even better videos for you in the future. Okay, let's get started. The FX2 on the surface might seem like a lukewarm release from Sony, and I think that is only true if you focus too much on the specs alone. This is a cinema line camera, which means it's designed with a working video professional in mind. On paper, the FX2 might not seem different enough from the a7 IV to justify its existence, which is why the online response has been underwhelming. But while these two cameras share the same sensor, they serve completely different needs. Since 2021, Sony has released 16 cameras. Here's the list of all of them. Filling out their lineup to this degree means that Sony has managed to have a camera that fits almost every need. The FX2 pulls tech from across their lineup: the sensor from the a7 IV, body inspiration from the FX3, the AI chip from the a7 II and a6700. If you judge this camera on technical innovation alone, I understand why it's initially disappointing, but I don't think you should write off this camera that easily. We're in a time where cameras have gotten so good across entire lineups that manufacturers can now fill out their product line with more niche options. The FX2 is one of those cameras. Before we talk about the shooting experience, let's take a quick physical tour. On the top of the camera, we have the shutter button with a built-in zoom rocker, 3 custom function buttons, a large record button, the joystick, and 2 1/4-20 mounting points. On the left of the camera, we have a full-size HDMI, micro USB for remote control and legacy accessories, Type-C with power delivery and UVC webcam support, plus 3.5mm mic and headphone jacks. On the right, we have another 1/4-20 mount, one dual CF Express Type A/SD card slot, and a second single SD card slot. On the rear, we have this very unique articulating EVF, a standard Sony Flippy LCD, the power switch, 2 setting control wheels, 3 custom buttons, playback, home, menu, and a movie to stills mode switch. On the bottom, we have 2 1/4-20 mounting points, which I love to see for that extra tripod stability, and the battery door for Sony's standard FZ100 battery. On the front, we have a settings control wheel on the new larger grip, a tally light, and another record button. The design is obviously very similar to the FX3 and FX30. The biggest departures are a few layout changes to the buttons and I/O, and this new tilting EVF. I really like this EVF, and to be honest with you, this is the first time I've had fun shooting stills on a Sony camera. It tilts a full 90 degrees so you can easily shoot from the hip without doing the typical photography hunch. I've seen some people say that they wish the EVF was removable because it makes the camera harder to pack, but I think if it was removable, it would just get lost or damaged. I use a removable EVF on my Leica M10 and honestly find it annoying to pack, easy to forget, and it's kind of fragile. Sony also added log shooting in stills mode, which could be really useful if you do location scouts often. You can test LUTs on your stills without pulling frames from video. The FX2 even lets you grab stills while recording video by pressing the shutter button when you have this setting enabled. I can think of dozens of shoots over my career where this would have been useful when doing pre-production for a project. The FX2 also benefits from other cinema line features. We have shutter angle, which is extremely useful when switching to different frame rates and not having to remember to change your shutter. The added AI chip in this camera gives it the most up-to-date autofocus performance Sony offers. This makes it better autofocus than the aging and more expensive FX3. There is dynamic active stabilization, Cine EI, which makes exposing log more streamlined, easy built-in audio with the top handle, and shooting modes like DCI 4K. It also has Sony's newest active fan design, so overheating on this camera is extremely unlikely. Now, by using the same sensor as the a7 IV, it does come with a few drawbacks. The readout speed isn't quite up to modern standards, so rolling shutter performance can be an issue, and there still is a 1.5x crop when shooting 4K 60 FPS. To find out whether these actually impacted my shooting experience, I took the FX2 out on the only sunny day of the last couple of weeks to shoot some eagles in the wild. Here's a quick breakdown of the setup I used for this test. I rented both the Sony 200-600mm f5.6 6.3 and their 2x teleconverter, which effectively gave me 1200mm. This gave me the reach that I wanted and would show me if the rolling shutter would actually be an issue. Long lenses and slow readout speeds don't usually go well together. I opted not to use a cage and just rigged a NATO rail and top handle directly to the camera, which you can do because this is a cinema line body. Since I wanted both stills and video back to back whenever I found an eagle, I needed a quick way to take an ND filter on and off, and this 200 to 600mm has a fairly large 95mm filter thread. Thankfully, Nisi recently sent over their Jetmag Pro 95mm variable ND for me to test for a future video. It's 1 to 5 stops with an additional 4 stops that you can stack on, and because it's magnetic, it was easy to quickly take on and off when moving between stills and video. This also made it convenient to swap lenses, but still have a quick way to put the ND filter back on because you can add a magnetic base ring to each lens you are using. For monitoring, I used my Portkeys LS7P 7-inch monitor to give me a larger image to operate from in the bright sunlight, and it helped me see if the rolling shutter was going to be an issue when using such a long lens. Sony bumped up the native ISO on the FX2 compared to the A7 IV. Instead of 3200, it's now 4000. This was extremely useful because at 600mm with the teleconverter, my fastest stop was f13 on the long end. Having a native ISO of 4000 made it way easier to properly expose my shots when shooting video. I didn't even find myself taking the ND filter off for the first brighter chunk of the day. I could get away with setting it to 1 stop when I was shooting stills, then turning it up to 3 to 5 stops for video as needed. Moving between the two modes only took a few seconds. I spent about 3 to 4 hours trying to get the perfect eagle flight shot unsuccessfully, though this wasn't the FX2's fault. If you shoot wildlife, you're probably used to this. It takes a lot of patience. The slower readout speed at 1200mm was definitely noticeable in this test. It made my initial framing for many of my shots a bit more difficult due to the shaking I got from operating the camera. It was also very windy the day that I shot this, so even for relatively static shots on a stable tripod, I definitely got some jello when shooting full frame. Now, this is the worst case scenario use case for something like the FX2. I didn't expect an amazing performance here. It's not really made for this kind of scenario. Even in an extreme situation like this though, I didn't find the readout speed for this camera prevented me from getting the shots that I wanted. I did manage to get some solid close-ups of these eagles in both stills and video that I'm still happy with. If you're willing to shoot with an APS-C crop video, the readout speed improves and this stops being as big of an issue. There are a lot of less extreme shooting situations where the readout speed on this camera isn't going to impact your footage. If you understand the limitations going into it, working around them isn't that difficult. If you frequently shoot something where it would be a problem, you probably already know that and this wouldn't be the right tool for you. My experience with the AI autofocus was also pretty good. I ran subject detection for birds and the FX2 did well. Almost every shot I got of an eagle came out sharp and the oversampled 4K video has really great detail and color. This was actually surprising because all the footage you're seeing was done with the 2x teleconverter. The teleconverter definitely sacrificed some image quality when it came to the stills because I also used such a high ISO, but for video, you'd probably never know I used one. Sony has also said that the color from this camera is closer to the Venice 2 than the A7 IV was, which makes sense since it's a camera in the cinema line, and after color grading all the footage I shot on this camera, the difference definitely feels noticeable. The 1.5x crop at 60 FPS also doesn't bother me that much. I daily an APS-C setup with my XH2S anyway, and appreciate the extra reach of APS-C in general. It is a con, yes, but again, not a deal breaker in my opinion. I also like that Sony makes it easy to press a single button to get into the APS-C mode at 24 FPS, which gives you some extra reach on the lens whenever you need it. Many hybrid cameras still don't do this. This camera unfortunately doesn't have 4K 120 FPS, which I'd like to have, but if you don't shoot slow motion much and spend your time shooting 24 to 30 FPS, then this isn't a big deal. As a shooting experience, the FX2 takes everything that made the FX3 design so efficient for pro video. A video-focused body layout, full-size HDMI, built-in LUT support, Cine AI mode, shutter angle, custom buttons you can personalize however you want, solid autofocus, it doesn't overheat, and it supports Sony's audio top handle for recording high-quality audio directly into the camera. All of this while shooting some fairly high-quality stills. The promise of a cinema-line body is the combination of speed and reliability. This camera is supposed to be a workhorse designed not to fail on you. It should help you get your work done faster. I think most video professionals just want their tools to do the job as easily and consistently as possible. That same philosophy also applies to every tool that I personally use on a job, which is why I'm glad this video is supported by LTTstore.com. They just released their newest colorways of their transparent LTT screwdriver. It now comes in plasma purple, cryo teal, molten orange, and carbon black. I've relied on this screwdriver for years now. Every single camera build I've done for a shoot or shown in videos on this channel was put together with the help of this screwdriver. It has a super comfortable 3-lobed handle that also has convenient bit storage for up to 12 20mm bits or 6 longer bits up to 42mm. The spring detent mechanism makes opening and closing the storage really satisfying. The ratchet is so smooth and sounds so nice that it actually makes assembling something boring like IKEA furniture feel more fun. The shaft has a powerful broach magnet that does a great job keeping bits in place while you're driving. I particularly like how light the back force is because it gives you good control when installing small screws on delicate gear like a camera. The default package includes 12 rust-resistant bits and a super strong 5x5 magnet bit that makes it super easy to retrieve screws if you drop them somewhere inconvenient. There are very few tools I use almost every day, but this screwdriver is definitely one of them. It comes with me on every project I shoot on location and is always easy access. You can check out all the new transparent colorways by scanning this QR code or clicking the first link in the video description. Thank you to ltcstore.com for making this video possible. I also spent a decent amount of time during my testing shooting with small lenses like the Thypox Mirror Cs. I use these in M mount with a positive lock adapter that Thypox makes, which keeps the lenses extra secure for when you use them with something like a focus motor. Shooting stills with this setup was actually a lot of fun, and this EVF made manual focus pretty easy. It actually felt pretty close to the way I use my Leica M10 for stills. I kind of wish every camera had an EVF option like this where it tilts 90 degrees. The combination of 7K oversampled footage from the FX2 with the character you get from these lenses is awesome. This truly is a super compact cinema setup capable of shooting an entire indie feature film if you wanted it to. I've said this before many times, but I think M-mount lenses on a body like the FX2 is a very underrated setup. There are so many great M-mount lenses out there, and with the stills performance of the FX2, using Cineglass for photos can be a lot of fun, especially if you happen to already have some lenses available on a video job you are doing anyway. The cherry on top is that lenses like this will be adaptable to pretty much any future full-frame camera that you own, no matter what brand it is. If you're willing to use manual lenses, I think this is an excellent alternative to getting locked into a single lens ecosystem. This significantly lowers your switching costs so you can freely switch camera bodies whenever you want. There were a few things I ran into shooting stills on the FX2 that weren't perfect. If you shoot with a single autofocus point, moving it around is a bit inconvenient because the joystick is on the top of the camera. The continuous shooting speed is also a bit slow at 10 FPS. This didn't really bother me shooting eagles, but for something like sports, it probably wouldn't cut it. The quality of the stills though was excellent. At 33 megapixels, I was more than satisfied with the detail. The color in stills on Sony cameras has come a long way. It was pretty easy to get the color where I wanted to in Lightroom, where in the past, I felt like sometimes I had to work a bit harder with Sony RAW files to get them where I wanted. There is still less personality to Sony files, but depending on your preferences when you're editing, that could be a pro or a con. For professionals already shooting on an FX6 or FX3 who occasionally need stills, the FX2 slots in perfectly. It's essentially the same workflow and can easily serve as a B or C camera. This works better than having an A7 IV do this job because overheating might be an issue. The body is slightly different layout-wise. The color doesn't match quite as easily, and I don't think it can be understated how valuable getting quality in-camera audio is on a camera this size. For beginners who want to learn a cinema camera workflow, you're essentially getting an FX3 at a lower price point with the added benefit of it being an excellent stills camera. Now, I'm making this video at an interesting time because Sony also just announced the A7 IV, which has a new partially stacked sensor with a faster readout and 4K 60 FPS without a crop. I haven't used the A7 IV yet, so I'll reserve my full thoughts for my review, but what I can say with confidence is that the target user for that camera is different. The FX2 is intended for video first users, mostly professionals. The A7 IV is intended for photo first users who happen to want good video. With image quality being pretty good across all cameras, the body design and the experience that comes with that is what makes each camera different. If you like the workflow of a photo first body like the A7 IV for video and prefer its updated hardware, then sure, it might be the better camera for you. But if you're working in a professional video setting with an FX6 and FX3, the FX2 is probably still a better complement. The way it operates is much closer to those cameras, streamlining your process. When time is always against you on a production, something as simple as not having shutter angle, in-camera audio on 1 out of 3 of your cameras, or a slightly different button layout that your camera operator isn't used to using, can all waste precious time. If you don't care about 60 FPS with no crop or a slightly slower readout speed on your B or C camera for, say, an interview, you ultimately just want the camera to do its job. If you make money professionally from a camera, you're there to efficiently do your job well. Your client doesn't care about camera specs. They care that you get the job done on schedule and on budget. This brings me to my last point that kind of applies to all Sony cameras, why I think they don't have OpenGate. I think ththese two quotes from Akio Morita, the founder of Sony, captures their philosophy on this. Carefully watch how people live, get an intuitive sense as to what they might want, and then go with it. Don't do market research. We must always look ahead to the future. What we create must work perfectly, not just once, but always. It's been in Sony's DNA from the beginning to make products they believe in and not just follow where the market is going. This is how we've gotten a lot of weird products from Sony over the years as well. Whether you agree with this philosophy or not isn't my point. My point is that Sony knows what they value and they don't believe in offering a feature in their products just because other brands have it. I think Sony has concluded that the downsides of OpenGate don't outweigh the benefits for most of their users. OpenGate has been around for a while now, so it's not the kind of innovation Sony usually aims for. If you shoot OpenGate for extended periods on the vast majority of compact mirrorless cameras from other brands, the camera will probably eventually overheat or might just cost a decent amount more than a camera that doesn't have it. I just made a video on the Canon R6 Mark III. That camera is amazing. It has OpenGate, but it also overheats if you shoot it for too long. Remember what I said earlier about Sony's professional reliability? They decided they care more about that than allowing OpenGate. Personally, I respect that choice because Sony is staying consistent to their philosophy from the beginning. This doesn't mean that they've stuck the landing on every product that they've made. Every camera has its issues, but this philosophy has given us a lot of great cameras. I'll also add that 3x2 OpenGate, while it can help when you are delivering a wide variety of deliverables with different aspect ratios for a client, I think Sony's assessment of the market's need for OpenGate isn't far off. It's just unfortunate if you fall in the camp that does need it, because I get it. If you need OpenGate, you can't actually take advantage of Sony's lens ecosystem and many of the other things that make their cameras a good experience. If you need OpenGate for a job, you are probably better off renting a larger camera, buying one that has it, knowing its thermal limitations, or other compromises within the context of your work and finding a way to work around them. All cameras will always have a trade-off, but we are inching closer to perfection every year. And if I had a camera like the FX2 when I first started out, I would have been ecstatic. If you're torn between the FX2 or paying a couple $100 more for something newer like the A7 IV, or maybe a camera from a completely different brand, you should really ask yourself, what is your main purpose for your camera? Don't think about specs alone. Think about what you're doing the majority of the time and how you like to work. Are you willing to trade the efficient cinema-line workflow for 60 FPS without a crop? Do you need 4K 120 FPS? Is a faster readout actually necessary for what you do? Are you using an FX3 or FX6 already? Do you shoot video or stills more? What lens ecosystem makes the most sense for you? Your workflow should determine what camera you buy because you have a lot of great options today at almost every price point. Personally, I think the FX2 suits beginner video professionals or people who are already familiar with and invested in Sony's lens ecosystem that want a competent stills camera. For that user, it's actually a pretty good camera. You will absolutely be able to create great work with it. It's a great time to begin a career with a camera. We have never had better choices. If you're still having trouble deciding, you can also watch this playlist here of every camera I've reviewed on this channel, and hopefully one of them works for you.